Hello and welcome back to the Sports Brief Podcast. Colton Hall. Been a couple weeks getting back in the episodes. Feels good to be back. Obviously got Mr. Garrett Gronlund joining us. How's it going, big guy?
It's going great. Loved being back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, big guy. Also got a special guest, former Minnesota Viking defensive end. Also played a little bit back for Northern Iowa. Mr. Karter Schult, thanks for coming on, big guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's get right into the show. Before we do, we actually have to ask you guys to go ahead and make sure you guys subscribe. Visit our website at www.thesportsbrief.podcast.com. Then, just make sure you guys subscribe, see all the weekly sporting takes from the Sports Brief Podcast. Mr. Schult, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was actually a while ago, that you announced your retirement from the NFL. For me as a fan, I actually really appreciated your post, you coming out and saying that you can't control anybody else's decisions, just your own. Actions, and it really just resonated with me because as a guy that's been a fan of you and watched you, it's just really cool to see. You walked out and you're under your terms, and I just felt like it was still cool to see you go out the way you did, or at least be able to play and live the dream in a way. Can you just talk about the decision to retire?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that I've been thinking about a long time, because my career didn't go exactly the way I wanted, but that's the way the life goes. And I got to live the dream. I was in the NFL for 3 years as a kid. If you would have told me and asked me if I would want that outcome, I would have said yes 100 times over. So I think I lived the dream, but in some aspects, the business of the NFL can be ruthless. So I agree with what you said, and I wanted to go out on my own terms. I think I could have probably kept stretching it out for a couple more years, bounced around here and there. I know the CFL was an option, and there was other options out there for me, but I just really didn't want to do that. Like you kind of said, I accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in my football career. I made it to the biggest stage. I've played in, amazing stadiums against really, really good competition players. So, I just knew, in my heart of hearts that I needed to move on because I wanted to move on to the next chapter of my life. And I'm really happy now in retirement. And, I don't really have any regrets. I don't miss it. I like the simple life that I live right now.
Absolutely. And it was kind of funny. I think you started D1 Des Moines, or at least you were, working on that. You're going to be a personal trainer. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been working on and off for the last 2 or 3 years there. You just know, in my off seasons, I would train, anywhere from kids in elementary school to high school and even college athletes. So, but now I'm there full time, and personal training, sport specific training, pretty all inclusive job that I have.
For me, I think if I'm going, especially if I'm going to a trainer that's been in the NFL, it gives me comfort to know that I'm going with somebody that, has been there, done all that. And in reality, he's reached the pinnacle. I've seen some of your highlight videos. I mean, you want to talk about a guy that was in shape. I mean, that's got to be really something big that you can market, and plus be able just to really use to your advantage, because, that's just got to be really good for your clientele.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that's something when I was, going through high school and stuff, I didn't have access to someone like me. And, what's really nice is in Iowa, Des Moines, there's not a ton of guys like me here, as if, like, maybe I was in somewhere in Florida or Texas, and my business probably wouldn't be as, the ceiling probably wouldn't be as high because there's more professional athletes here and there. But in Des Moines, there's not many, and especially where I come from, from a really small school in town in northeast Iowa, that's not really an option at all. So I just want to be an asset and a resource to kids and youth that have the same dream and passion that I had, and just help them reach their goals and dreams. And so I thought that was the best way to do it, was through training. And so, that's what I do now, is I hope to help as many kids as I can reach their goals and their dreams.
Absolutely. That sounds awesome. My last question really is, as you kind of move forward here, I think it's important to be able to have a little bit of self-reflection, look back, and just maybe look back at something, be able to take the best lesson away from it. Maybe do you have something in your time in the NFL that you won't never forget, or maybe just is it the people, the way of life? What about the NFL won't you soon forget?
Yeah, I guess it would just be live in the moment. A lot of times, I think when I look back, I had big picture. It didn't work out the way that I would ideally would have liked it to. But I had some amazing experiences and things that I'll never forget. Things I'll tell my kids about, and things that I'm revered and respected around here for my lifetime. So I think if I were to take anything away from it, I would just be this perspective of what an amazing experience it was, and how the odds were stacked against me. I mean, they're the top. Making it to the NFL is the top 1% of the 1%. And to make it where I came from, was almost impossible. If you look at it, I started high school playing 8-man football. I wasn't supposed to make it to college to play football at a high level. And then when I got there, I wasn't supposed to be anything. And then obviously it turned out that I was, and I just kept being a big underdog for the duration of my entire football career. And I think the big takeaway is just I'm very proud of what I've accomplished, and looking back, I have no regrets. Yeah, and it was an amazing experience.
Awesome, man. Mr. Gronlund, do you have any questions for Carter before we head out?
Just really quickly, one question that I always like to talk about with athletes in general. But do you have like a favorite moment or story from your career in the NFL that you'd like to share with us?
That's a tough question. There's so many, but I would probably just say, there are so many. I mean, from different teams, but right up the top of my head, just walking into the first NFL stadium that I ever did. It was when I was in Cleveland right away as a rookie. And, as a rookie, everything's more amplified than ever. So, I'm naive and, still fresh and young. So I walk into Cleveland Stadium, and, I mean, it's just like I was at the bottom of the Gladiator Stadium in Rome. It was just a surreal experience. And then I'd say throughout the entire career, every experience that I had was amazing running out of the tunnel. Like, there's nothing like running out of the tunnel with 50,000+ fans screaming. There's just no feeling like that, really. So,
no.
Some iconic ones, like when I was in Cleveland, walking out to Soldier Field for the first time. I'd watched the Packers and the Bears play my entire childhood. So it was crazy that I'd seen it on TV and watched people, Brett Favre playing in Soldier Field for years, and then I was playing in it. I got a couple sacks in Soldier Field. So it's just, looking back on it, it's amazing, honestly. And I sometimes have to remind myself that was me, because now I live a simple life and I enjoy it. But it's just crazy perspective-wise to think, how much I've accomplished over the years. So,
Absolutely. Did you have anything else for him, Garrett, before we head out?
Who was probably the biggest player that helped you develop in your years in the NFL? Was there a player or a certain coach that helped you out or left a giant impression on you?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say my time in Cleveland was great, because when I was there, they didn't win a game, so that wasn't great. But I actually really enjoyed my time in Carolina. Coach Ron Rivera, he obviously got let go and he's with the Redskins now. But he was a great guy, great coach. I really really liked him. Our defensive coordinator there, Eric Washington, was really great. He was really great to me, and even in Minnesota, especially the defensive line coach, Andre Patterson, he's really well respected around the league. And the biggest thing I can say about all those coaches is they just treated me like I was, part of it. I was not unlike anyone else, like Daniil Hunter or those big stars. I was treated the exact same way as they were treated. So it was nice, they didn't basically didn't take more time with them than me. Everyone gave me a fair shot. So that's and they taught me a lot, obviously, about football and technique. And so I'd say those guys shaped and helped me the most in my NFL time.
Yeah, of course, man. Like I said, it was really definitely fun watching you because, I think I was watching, I think they were playing the Bills or somebody, and I think I watched you get a sack on a guy because, literally, it was basic read play. Tackle goes down, you're skating at the hip, you're waiting for to read the play because I think it was a read option, and then I saw you make the tackle on the quarterback, and I think it was like Paxton Lynch or somebody. I can't remember. Somebody really athletic, and I saw this defensive end make a tackle on a quarterback that was athletic. I was like, wow, that usually doesn't happen. Usually, a quarterback's able to do a little bit of shimmy or a shake, but you got him down. And I was like, who is that? So then ever since then, I was, I made sure I followed your career and everything. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you coming on because I know I think it was important that you got your chance to kind of, say what was on your mind and be able to come out and just talk about retirement. I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. I agree. It's something I don't always talk about, and it's nice to talk about it. I could probably talk about it for hours, so thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You take it easy, and we'll catch you later.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Dude, that's awesome. You don't get to see that every day.
No, he's a really good dude. Like I said, I followed his career a lot. And it wasn't even just after that play. I followed him in the CFL a little bit. So to really kind of see how he was and really just to get to know him, he's been on the podcast before. I wrote a story about him on the Unfiltered Sports Network. Just a good guy. Obviously, he was a small-town kid, and just seeing him come up through the NFL and being able to hi, little puppy there. That's cute.
Yeah, dude, he must be on the action, too. He wonders who I'm talking to.
Hey, that's all right. That's all right. But no, I think that kind of is that a lab?
Golden Retriever.
Golden Retriever. Okay, those are okay. So we'll get into the cutest puppies later. I think we have that discussion now that I saw that Golden Retriever we have to bring up. But no, as far as Karter, no, great dude, guy that I really admired, not just because he was also from a small town, but because he beat the odds, made it in the NFL, and just a really cool story to follow.
Agreed. It's always cool to do those. It's always cool.
Yeah, absolutely. When he was talking about going on Soldier Field, I've only been at maybe one or two Vikings games, and so but being on the field, that probably had to be I probably would have fainted. They would have had to have medical staff there as soon as possible because I wouldn't have been able to get my breath. But yeah, let's kind of head to the second segment here. This is kind of something that's coming up. I think the NFL is trying to put a couple more games on and include another team in the NFL. Personally, I think that just looking at this, the NFL has evolved all throughout the years. That's just pretty easy to see. I believe at one time there was 12 games, and then there was 14 games, and now there's 16 games, and others talk of 18 games. Personally, I think it's a little much, and if they do if they do add 2 more games, I think it's something that they should look into at least making sure that they at least maybe add a couple more players, because if nothing, they need to be sure that everybody's fresh, because as it is, 53-man roster, a lot of guys are sore, a lot of guys are beaten out because it's a long NFL season. Coming out there, I think they have to add, I don't know how many more roster spots, but I would say anywhere from the 7 to 10 to 15 range because of the fact that of how strenuous and how hard it is to be able to make that happen. What was your take on an 18-game season, yay or nay?
Only if they take away 2 of the preseason games. I've said it, the whole time. I don't like the 4 preseason games. I'm always nervous that there's going to be a huge injury on the team that I like. There's going to be an unnecessary injury that happens. Mm-hmm. So if they took away 2 of the preseason games and add those on to the regular season games, I would be for it. More football, more actual football that counts is always better.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I don't know if I support the whole one more team in the playoff race. Now, unless you're like the 2007, 2011 Giants, where you literally were the wild card team and went on to win the Super Bowl, beat the Patriots twice, which I think everybody likes to see. I mean, personally, when I was looking at that, I was just kind of enamored. Like, to add another team like that, I don't know if that would necessarily be the greatest idea. I think that when the NFL comes and they have 6 teams from each from the AFC and the NFC, I think they've got a really good idea of who really is going to come in and be a threat in the playoffs. Because I think there's a couple of teams in there that sometimes the team hits a spark, a team gets hot during the right time of the year, but more often than not, those NFL teams that are in the wild card or that are that maybe in the division run usually get beat out. They usually come back the next year and do whatever they do. But I do think that adding an extra team, I don't think it'll do anything. Like, I think it'll honestly just it'll add a couple games, maybe get a little bit more money for the players, which I'm always all for, because I think the owners could they do a good job of sharing the money, but they could always be better. We could all always be better. But I think at the end of the day, this adding two more games, I don't think it'll be worth it in the end. It'll be interesting to see how some of these other players, how they vote and everything, and the player committee and everything. 2 more. What about another playoff team? What do you think about that?
I kind of like the six teams each side. It gives you a reason to fight for the 2 bye spots. And then it's like you said. I mean, if you go and look at the NFC and you go and look at the AFC and you see the very next team that was the very next echelon of would have been that next team, and that you're like, this team isn't going to win it all. Like, they're not. I mean, you could even look at both sides and say yeah, realistically, it's probably one of these 3 teams, or it's one of these 3 teams. So even though we have 6 teams on each side in the playoffs right now, usually you look at it and say, yeah, there's probably about 5 or 6 here that have, a legitimate chance at winning the Super Bowl. There is always that fluke, out of nowhere season where a 5 or 6 wild card team, but that team's usually incredibly hot going into the playoffs too. It's not like, they battled to get to that wild card spot.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the playoff setup the way it is now.
Mm-hmm. Another question here, and I listen to ESPN a lot. I have a lot of free time before I go to work. Now the new job in Rapid City is awesome. I'm loving it here. Working with TV cameras behind prompters. I actually do have to kind of pause here for a second to apologize to the listeners. We've been kind of busy. Had an episode with Tanner Fritz, but some of my Wi-Fi was kind of going a little bit bad, so I'm actually doing this podcast in the basement of my sister. A big shout out to Katie. Thank you for that. I'm kind of mooching off Wi-Fi here, but I guess that's how it goes in this life. But I just want to say, we're glad to be back. But now that I'm in Rapid City, I kind of look at some things, and I have a lot more free time, listen to more ESPN. And one question that I've noticed is everybody is saying that Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback in the NFL, and I think that's rightfully so. I mean, first year as a starter, you go all the way to the AFC Championship game and lose by a pre-snap penalty, and then the next year you come back and win it as only a third-year player, second-year starter. And I know people, he didn't throw as many touchdowns. Well, he missed 2.5 games, and also it was the fact that, he won a Super Bowl. You can't argue with rings at the end of the day. Just ask Tom Brady. I think at the end of the day, he probably is the best quarterback in the league right now. But the question that I had today is, if we're an NFL voice crack, embarrassing. If we were an NFL GM or who would we want to start our franchise with? Would we want to tag a franchise quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, or would we want to go the other route and get Bill Belichick? Now, I have to start by saying Bill Belichick is, I don't care what anybody says, he's the GOAT over Tom Brady. He has, I think, obviously Tom Brady is a good quarterback. You have to be a good quarterback to win, 6 Super Bowl rings? But I do think that it's one of those things where you can't have one and not the other. Bill Belichick is one of the best coaches in terms of finding talent and getting them to where they're supposed to be, and just finding talent out of nowhere. That's he's probably one of the best in the business. So, my question to you is: would you rather start a franchise with Patrick Mahomes or Bill Belichick?
Bill Belichick, all the way. I mean, you look at what he's done. He doesn't go in there because usually coaches will go into the NFL with this philosophy of, I'm going to do things my way, and it has to be this way, and all this. And Bill Belichick goes into it going, hey, can you do this job? Your job is to be able to run a 5-yard out and a 10-yard slant effectively. That's your job. If you do it, we're going to have good things happen. And like you said, he's done that consistently throughout his whole time with the Patriots from start to finish with guys that nobody really knows of, and they turn into, stars. Obviously, he's had Tom Brady, but at the same time, if you look at the Super Bowl 2 years ago when they played the Rams, what was it? Like a 10-7, extremely low scoring game, So that just shows, that, he's able to also bring in all of these defensive guys as well. And, well, if you have Bill Belichick, maybe you don't get a Patrick Mahomes, but I feel like Bill Belichick would be good enough to bring in a top-tier quarterback like a Russell Wilson, a Drew Brees, a Tom Brady. He'd be able to bring in one of those other types of quarterbacks into your system and then also build around that quarterback and be successful. And it's like I said, his 20 AFC East titles or whatever it is and how many they had in a row, all the AFC conference championships games he's gone into, the playoff wins, the Super Bowl victories. And I think that he just has a way better resume than Patrick Mahomes does in his 2 years. But yeah, like Patrick Mahomes is an incredible quarterback. Still going to take Lamar Jackson over him in fantasy football, but
I think you have to.
Yeah, you have to.
I drafted him first overall last year, and some people were like hacking on me in the chat, whatever. They're like, "This guy's a clown. He's taking Patrick Mahomes." But for like the first 3 weeks, the dude was like tearing it up. I think he threw like 10, 11, 1,200 touchdowns, no picks, like 300, 400 yards a game. Like the only reason I was winning fantasy football at all was because of him. And literally, I think moving forward, I think he's obviously going to be he's going to either be top 10 pick, if not a top 5 or top 3, because I mean he's the best quarterback in the NFL, and that's the reason why I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes here. Now, I realize that an NFL head coach, good ones are hard to find, but at the same time, if you have a franchise quarterback, let's go back to the 2011, 2012, the Packers. Like the Packers had Mike McCarthy, who I personally think is a Hall of Fame coach. He led them to a lot of good finishes, a lot of good years, and even including a Super Bowl victory. And he had Aaron Rodgers. But I know some Packers fans and Viking fans might not agree with me when I say that I think he's a Hall of Fame coach, because he only has one Super Bowl, and he did it on the back of Aaron Rodgers, who threw like 40 touchdowns that year, and they just got hot at the right time, and they were able to take home the Lombardi Trophy that year. I have to go with Patrick Mahomes here, because if not for Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid would not have his first Super Bowl right now. And don't get me wrong, Andy Reid is probably one of the best offensive minds to ever be in this conversation, let alone the NFL in NFL history, really. Andy Reid wouldn't have his Super Bowl if it wasn't for Patrick Mahomes. Like Patrick Mahomes, like the first time he stepped on the field was dominating the NFL. I saw something from Patrick Mahomes today that basically he didn't start playing the quarterback position until he was a junior in high school. So for this guy to come in and then also later on in the quote used to say that in his first year in the NFL, he didn't even know how to read an NFL defense. He was just hucking the ball. If you're going to huck the football and throw 50 touchdowns in a year only against minimal interceptions, you are the big reason as to why your team is in the NFL or is as good as it is. Now, I'm not saying look at how many years they had Alex Smith. Look at how many years they struggled to really get over that hump. And now Alex Smith, I hope he comes back and makes has a really good career for the rest of his career. But they had Alex Smith for a long time, and they weren't able to do anything with him. Patrick Mahomes, a heartbeat, I would take Patrick Mahomes. Not to say Bill Belichick, I wouldn't want him, but I would pick Patrick Mahomes because I've seen great quarterbacks be able to guide some of these coaches who might not be in the upper tier of head coaches or according to some or whoever it is. I would take Patrick Mahomes in a heartbeat because of the fact that this guy is doing. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say. Yeah, well, he has a lot of talent. Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, blah, 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 Damian Williams. Listen, you can't doubt the skills and the talent of Patrick Mahomes. Like, you can't sit here and watch him and not think, okay, this guy is going to be the greatest thing. He's the smarter version of Brett Favre. Like, he's a gunslinger. He takes good care of the football, doesn't make mistakes. And at the end of the day, he's just a Super Bowl champion. So we can't take that away from him either. I would always go with Patrick Mahomes. And I believe you're a Raiders fan, aren't you?
Big time. Big
time Raiders fan. Is it going to suck having to go against him?
It does. It does suck. It's going to suck for the next 12 years. It's not fun. It's not fun.
Like, do you think, but I mean, let's talk about the Raiders a little bit. I mean, kind of, the Raiders moving forward they have a couple of draft needs, but they made a big jump from last year. Added a couple of 3 first-round draft picks. Cleveland Farrell played very well. Josh Jacobs played well. And I'm kind of blanking on your guys' last first-round draft pick. Maybe he didn't play much.
Jonathan Abrams?
Jonathan Abrams, yeah. Did he have a good season?
He was the guy that broke his, shoulder, collarbone in that first game against the Broncos.
Okay.
He was the salmon guy.
Okay. Well, I mean, you guys made a quick turnaround, and you had and he was a corner or safety, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's that safety spot.
Safety.
Max Crosby, our 3rd-round pick out of Eastern Michigan, was a huge.
He had 10 sacks.
Yeah, Nick Bosa, because he was on the 49ers, won Defensive Player of the Year, and Kyler Murray stole Offensive Rookie of the Year from Josh Jacobs. It is what it is. I like Kyler Murray, OU boy, but Josh Jacobs deserved that.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs played absolutely great this year. I was kind of I screwed up my running backs in fantasy football. Like it really made me mad because I got Patrick Mahomes right away. That was a no-brainer. I was going to pick Patrick Mahomes. But after that, my running backs were like Dalvin Cook, who was, even despite his dominance, was injury-prone. And then it was also, I hate to say this, I had Latavius Murray for most of the year. And behind Alvin Kamara didn't do anything because, I mean, the man just didn't get the ball a lot. I mean, that's how it goes. I thought it was funny how Latavius Murray went to the Saints and then lost to the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs. Like, I was a little happy about that. Like, I knew the Vikings were going to lose to the 49ers because the 49ers were running over everybody, but I was a little happy about that.
Well, everybody was.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. I love that even.
Yeah.
I'm not a Saints person, so I love it.
Not a Saints fan, but that's okay. So what about the Raiders here? The biggest needs going in for the draft for the Raiders, what are they?
They need a linebacker, and that with their 2 first-round picks, it's mandatory that they go and get a linebacker such as that Isaiah Simmons from Clemson or Kenneth Murray out of Oklahoma. And then it's also important that they get a receiver like CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, however you say his name, from Alabama. This is such a stacked receiving core class. The fact that they need to get, I mean, personally, because I'm an Oklahoma fan, I really hope they get CeeDee Lamb. I love Kenneth Murray, but Isaiah Simmons can literally do it all. I don't think they'll get both Isaiah Simmons and CeeDee Lamb, so I hope they get at least, one of those 2 and then fill that other need as well. Those are the 2 important right there. They have 3 picks in the 3rd round. They don't have a 2nd-round pick. That pick is with the Bears. But they have their 3rd-round pick. I believe they have the Jets' 3rd-round pick, and they have the Bears' 3rd-round pick. And with those picks, I'm really hoping that they go for defensive backs is their real big issue. And then outside of the draft, the Raiders have, I believe, $51 million in cap space, they're just outside the top 10. I think they're in the 11-12 spot for most cap space going into free agency. Mm-hmm. So it also depends on what they're going to do in free agency with some of that money, which I'll talk about quarterback situations when you would talk about what you don't want to see your team do in a little bit. But yeah, right away, I think the most important is getting CeeDee Lamb and Isaiah Simmons. Like I said, I don't think Isaiah Simmons is going to be on the board for that long. I know that there are some teams though who are planning on trading back, and I was thinking to myself, I really hope the Raiders make that push to go from that that 11 spot to that 6-7 spot. And, give away maybe a 5th, 6th round pick as well, just so you can get – because Isaiah Simmons is going to be a Hall of Fame player. And then, I mean, this is me being my OU bias, but CeeDee Lamb is going to be the best receiver in this draft. His route running, his ability to see the field after he makes a catch, his speed, he's perfect, and I want him as an Oakland Raider.
Mm-hmm. Here's the thing, though. I feel like the Raiders, they kind of got burned with the whole Antonio Brown situation. I don't know. Yeah, I know. I kind of look at it. I feel bad for the Raiders because, they gave up so much in free agency. Or, excuse me. It wasn't even that much that they gave up that much. They gave up a couple of later-round picks or whatever, but they were ready to pay him handsomely to be Derek Carr's number 1 wide receiver. And life just didn't pan out like that. And I'm thinking here, I just felt bad for Raiders fans because I know what it's like to be upset like that, just to have not necessarily the same situation with Antonio Brown, but I know what it's like to be able to kind of be hurt by your team. Trust me, I'm a Vikings fan. We know what it's like. Do you get into this quarterback situation? Would you want Tom Brady to be in Oakland or excuse me, with the Raiders, not Oakland?
So the situation about this is that right now the Raiders are paying Derek Carr a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
So the only way that I am somewhat okay with the Raiders getting Tom Brady would be if we would have to trade Derek Carr. And, personally, I think Derek Carr is a great human being. I don't dislike Derek Carr. I think he's a great guy. And it honestly, whatever happens. I don't get to control it. I would be happy with Derek Carr as my quarterback. I'd be happy with Tom Brady as my quarterback. It's just that I want the Raiders organization to do it right, so we're not wasting all this money on Tom Brady, and then we still got Derek Carr over here. I don't want us to draft a quarterback in the first round and waste one of those 2 picks that we really need to use on linebackers and a wide receiver on one of those quarterbacks, because everybody's going to talk about Gruden can pull the trigger on any time at using a first-round pick on a quarterback, and that's just something that they can't do. So that's kind of the Tom Brady, Derek Carr situation for me. Is if we get Tom Brady, Derek Carr's got to go somewhere. If we don't get Tom Brady, then we don't draft a quarterback unless we use I'd be okay with maybe with a 3rd or 5th round pick just in case Gruden wants to experiment. I really don't have a problem with that as long as it's not wasting a 1st round pick on it. Mm-hmm. And the biggest disaster that could happen for the Raiders is they go after Jameis Winston. And I would absolutely lose my mind if the Raiders went after Jameis Winston. I would be so incredibly upset with the Raiders if they went after Jameis Winston. That is worst case scenario right now for Raiders fans is us going for Jameis Winston.
Okay, well, he did get LASIK. So, hopefully, that helps a little bit. Maybe he'll be able to see his receivers a little bit better. I don't know. And I know we're going to talk about Jameis Winston kind of coming up, though. But let's look at it this way. Derek Carr brought you guys, I would actually say, better success than most NFL quarterbacks. Now, I believe he was a 2nd-round draft pick, wasn't he?
He was the 1st pick in the 2nd round.
1st pick in the 2nd round. For the value that you've gotten out of Derek Carr, and they're paying him a lot of money, when you pay a quarterback a lot of money, you're kind of sometimes you're guessing. I think Patrick Mahomes is going to get an absurd amount of money. That guy won't ever have to worry about money for the rest of his life. Just looking at this, I do honestly believe that Derek Carr is worth the money, but let's look at who he was working with last year. He had a guy by the name of Darren Waller, who, by the way, can haul. The dude can run, straight up run. And I don't think that it's time to panic yet because, you guys are going to get a receiver. You're going to get some guys in there. He had Amari Cooper before, and Amari Cooper, I don't know, just was afraid of the football or something, or just...
He's a drop king. He's the drop king. Yeah.
But, he kind of seemed to resurge his career a little bit with the Cowboys, which is good to see. But I do think that if you get him a receiver, I think Derek Carr will be able to do a lot of good in different things. Just because, it wasn't Tyrell Williams had a good year too. 5-6 touchdowns, but he's really not a number one.
He was injured for half the year. That was his biggest blow to us.
Do you think? The dude had 5-6 touchdowns in half the year. When he came from the Chargers, that was one pick that I said that a lot of people listened to me, but I thought that was going to be a great pickup because. He seemed to be a go-to for Phillip Rivers at the time, and then Derek Carr gets him. And I just felt like he was going to be a good pick, a guy that can run a little bit, can catch, and make some big plays. Get a full year healthy out of him, get a wide receiver in the 1st round. Your offensive line, isn't one of the best in the NFL?
It is the best in the NFL. Yeah, with Trent Brown, we just got him from the Patriots the previous year. We've got Gabe Jackson, who's going to come back from an injury. So he's had a whole year to recover. We have one of the best centers in Rodney Hudson, and then we have Richie Incognito, who came back and he had a great first year at the Raiders. And then that other right tackle spot, that Colton Miller that we got, he's starting to look like an actual offensive lineman. So yeah, they're part of the reason why Josh Jacobs had the success that he did, but. Trent Brown had some injury problems. Richie Incognito missed the first few games with that suspension he had to do. We didn't have Gabe Jackson throughout the whole year. We missed, I think, Rodney Hudson was injured for 8 games too. We had a really beaten up offensive line, so hopefully they'll be healthy. And same thing with our running back too, and getting Josh Jacobs and getting him healthy. Because he got injured and really bummed up and had a shoulder injury, but he was, still like being like, I got to play. And he was a man out there. And I love watching Josh Jacobs. Like, I ordered a Josh Jacobs jersey.
There you
go. Like that. I had to. I was like, this guy is going to be the real deal. He's so fun to watch. So I just wish nothing. And then he's going to have a chip on his shoulder from, getting snubbed the rookie of the year. And honestly, like, I was looking at it, he was having some of the highest grades for running backs in the NFL up there with like Christian McCaffrey and all those other guys. So I'm really excited to see what he'll do in year number 2.
Yeah, me too. I think he's really going to be good. I actually might want to pick him up on fantasy. I struggled. I hesitated, and that was what the problem is. I thought he would be there later in the second round, but he was gone by then. I thought maybe since he was a rookie, maybe he'd go a little later, but no, made a mistake. I'll have to pick up my running backs better this year. What is one mistake, possibly the biggest mistake the Raiders can't make this year in the draft, free agency, or whatever it is? What is the biggest mistake they cannot make?
Getting Jameis Winston. dude, they can't screw up this quarterback situation. So they just can't screw it up money-wise. They can't screw it up with who they get wise. It's just the quarterback situation in general, like not wasting a first-round pick on a quarterback, not getting Jameis Winston. If you do get Tom Brady, you're going to have to do something with Derek Carr. If you keep Derek Carr, perfectly okay. But they just can't screw up this quarterback situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, quarterback is like the most important position in the NFL. Like, if you don't get that right, not a lot right is going to go else for you. Like, nothing else right, I don't know how you want to phrase that, is going to go right for your team. If you don't have a good quarterback, or at least one that can at least hold it down for a couple years, well, maybe you teach a guy under him, not a lot is going to go well. I think that kind of looking at this perfect example, that Christian Ponder back for the Vikings a couple years ago. He was a guy, I don't think he had a lot of help anyways. Like, he had Greg Jennings, he had some okay wide receivers. But, I mean, it was AP's show. Like, you were going to give the football to AP probably 9 times out of 10, and that's what made the Vikings offense so predictable, despite the fact that they did go to the playoffs after he tore his ACL, which was incredible. I'll never forget that year. But I think that if you don't get this, you're right. You can't screw up this quarterback situation. That kind of goes into the Vikings a little bit, who I'll get into in a second. But, yeah, I mean, quarterback situation for the Raiders, that's a tough choice, though. Do you want to bring in a guy that didn't have a ton of weapons in New England, bring him to Oakland, who, again, you don't have a ton of weapons, and you got a good running back. Your defense is a little suspect, even though at times it did step up. But overall, it's kind of a defense you're kind of like, you don't know. I think that in order for Tom Brady to succeed there, you need to bring in quite a bit to make that happen. So, yeah, they can't screw it up. I think for the most bang for their buck, they got to stick with Derek Carr, just in order to just get him some weapons. Now, if Derek Carr had the weapons that Kirk Cousins had, if he had Stephon Diggs, if he had Adam Thielen, if he had Kyle Rudolph, and Josh Jacobs as well, I mean, he has Josh Jacobs. If he had wide receivers and he had a defense, I think that Derek Carr could be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I just don't know if that is carrying a team right now. I just don't know that is. That's a good question that we'll have to answer later on. Let's kind of get into the Vikings now. The biggest thing that the Vikings cannot do, or the biggest mistake they can't do, and if it's me, it's a quarterback situation again. Now I know this Kirk Cousins thing, his contract is kind of hurts us. I think we only have $1 million in cap space. Like, we might be over. I'm not sure. But looking at this, the Vikings don't have a lot of room to be able to re-sign anybody. They got to do a lot of different things. They got to bring back Anthony Harris. See if they can restructure some other guys or something. I don't know. Riley Reef is a guy that you think about too. They got to replace a left guard, but it all starts with the quarterbacks. And Kirk Cousins, it's not that he didn't underperform necessarily. If you're asking me, I think it's the fact that he didn't produce in the big moments, and it was because of the offensive line. But we're talking about the future here. The Vikings gave 3 years. They have to draft a quarterback. I don't care if it's the first 1 through 3 rounds. Somewhere, I think they have to draft a quarterback. I don't care. But it can't be a lower guy that you want to develop. You have to draft a franchise quarterback, but you need to address some other stuff first. So that I think you need to address the offensive line and corners, and then I think the Vikings are going to be a tough team. So I think that it all starts because, okay, if the Vikings don't make the playoffs this year, I will live. I'll be upset as I normally am, as most Vikings fans are. That's just how this business goes. But if they pigeonhole themselves with Kirk Cousins, stuff is not going to go right. I guarantee you that. If they do not at least try to make a pick. Maybe if they do have to draft a guy in the later rounds, at least develop the guy. Because as a Vikings fan, I'm so sick and tired of not truly having a franchise quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. Like, I know they come around once in a great while, but I mean, to have to pay a guy, what, 27, 20, 26 million, whatever it is, to come in and have to, underachieve, if you ask me, I think it's rough. And I don't think it's all in him. I think a little bit of it is on the offensive line. A lot of the different things that goes wrong there. I mean, the left guard, again, wasn't great. The left side of the line, in my opinion. And also, I mean, Garrett Bradbury had a tough rookie season in a whole, even though he did show some good signs, and the Vikings were able to run the football pretty effectively. But if you want Kirk Cousins to be able to have to open it up, I mean, you got to give him an offensive line. I think that's just the number one thing. But yeah, it's you got to start with the corners, and then the quarterback situation, and then you work into corners and offensive linemen to be able to fix that. And they might have Drew Samia, who was I believe he was a fourth round draft pick out of Oklahoma last year, and that guy's mean. Like, Oklahoma, you know.
Yeah, I love Oklahoma.
You love Oklahoma. That guy is mean. Like, I think he's even gotten a couple of situations where he's got penalties because he's too mean. Like, that's the kind of offensive lineman we need. Like, guys that will, like, take you and drive you out of the stadium until the next play and come back and do it again. Like, that's the kind of offensive lineman that the Vikings need. So I'm excited to see what he can do. He essentially had a redshirt season, so he can kind of put on some weight, even though he was pretty heavy. He was around 306. He was a pretty heavy dude coming in.
Big boy.
He's a big boy, and he's mean. So I think kind of with this next year, they're going to kind of see what they can do with him. And they had a couple of other guys. That Oli Uda, also a big guy at right tackle. He'll actually give him some depth too. So I'm excited for the Vikings. But do please, God, don't screw up this quarterback situation here either.
Let me ask you a quick question on this.
Go right ahead.
So I've been listening to a lot of different football talks. I've been listening to I look at constant mock drafts all the time. Some of the two things that I've seen a lot with the Vikings and their quarterback situations is I've seen them trying to trade up with their 21st round pick and, go for a guy like Jordan Love out of Utah State, or, one of those big name quarterbacks that's kind of talked about in that, top 8 area getting drafted. Mm-hmm. That's one thing that I've seen. I've seen a lot of them say that the Vikings, are going to take a guy like Cam Hayward, a defensive back out of Florida with that first round pick. And then, in the third round pick, they would draft somebody like Jalen Hurts and try to see what they could do with Jalen Hurts. And so that's just something that I've kind of seen as like a more majority type thing right now. Mm-hmm. I don't know how much you've heard of that or how much you look at that, but what are your thoughts when you think about doing the whole Kansas City Chiefs route and trying to trade up and get a quarterback like they did with Patrick Mahomes, or do you take a defensive back right there in the first round and then go for a third round pick of a guy like Jalen Hurts? What, as a fan of the Vikings, what would you rather see them do?
As a fan of the Vikings, this offensive line issue has been something that's been lingering for a while now. I know that they had when Case Keenum was there, he basically bailed them out on a lot of stuff. It wasn't like the Vikings offensive line improved majorly. It was the fact that, he actually just had a heck of a year and made him look good. So if they're not going to fix the offensive line, literally, Case Keenum made him look good. It was crazy the entire year. And I think kind of moving forward, you have to decide if you got a guy like Patrick Mahomes, you are absolutely 100% sold on it. If you want to bet the farm on, trade up. If you got a guy that for the next 10, 15 years can make you legitimate Super Bowl contenders, I think it's something you have to take a shot on. That's something that makes or breaks a franchise in a franchise quarterback. So if you are 100% sold on the guy, you just love him for character, you love his arm, you love how he conducts himself, I say you pull the trigger. But as a fan, I say that you have to, if you're not going to fix the offensive line, get an athletic quarterback. Bring in, I think I would be for the Jalen Hurts, but they have to get him in the right round. You have to at least shore up your defense a little bit here because they got some holes in the secondary, even though they got two of the better safeties in the NFL, and Harrison Smith and Anthony Harris. Xavier Rhodes should be gone. I want the rest of his salary cap so we can sign somebody else. Trey Waynes, in my opinion, should be gone, even though he was the most reliable Vikings corner last year. And Mackenzie Alexander deserves to at least stick around for one more year because I know it wasn't that long ago he was one of the better slot corners in the entire NFL. So I think if the Vikings do draft a quarterback, It will have to be. I think they're probably going to do it in a later round, unless they're 100% sold on a guy, because I don't think they're going to want to take a shot on somebody that's really not. If they're not sure, they're kind of like the whole Christian Ponder thing was a reach a couple years ago. I'm a little nervous to pull the trigger on that. They have to be 100% sure if they're going to go ahead and pull the trigger on the quarterback because of how many times they've been burned. Mike Zimmer. Even though he probably saved his job last year with winning a playoff game, I don't expect him to go anywhere. I think it would be Rick Spielman, who I don't know. It's rough. It's rough trying to pick a quarterback because it's just there's so many different factors that go into it. But I think if you do take a shot on a guy like Jalen Hurts, it has to be that third or all the way maybe down to a fifth or sixth round. Even though I don't think he won't drop that far. But I think if you don't fix to answer your question, if the Vikings don't fix the offensive line. I think if they're going to draft a quarterback, it's probably going to be a guy like Jalen Hurts. So I think at some point they got to see what they want to do, and if they do actually see him as the future, maybe just show off the offensive line just with at least an upgrade over Pat Elflein because he was leaky last year. I think he allowed 6 or 7 sacks last year. Guy just didn't get it at left guard. So I think you're going to have to bring in at least somebody, give him some time, and then let him run loose if he so chooses. But this is kind of something we're gonna have to see with this NFL draft. I think it's gonna be a good draft. I'm kind of scared. I don't think the Vikings should trade up. I think they should. If they do trade up for anything, it should be for corner because, in my opinion, so many incredibly unlucky plays happened for the Vikings last year when opposing quarterbacks would throw it up. Our corners just didn't have the ball skills to go locate it, go up and high point, go up and make a play on it. That was just the reason that they didn't make a lot of things happen. And. I think that kind of leads in perfectly to our next thing here in terms of what the Vikings do in the offseason. Free agency. Free agency expectations. What as far as for the Raiders, what do you think? What are your expectations for the team this year in free agency?
Well, I think he got franchise tagged. I'd have to kind of check it, but I know kind of something that I was maybe a little bit leaning towards is the Raiders going after AJ Green from the Bengals. I think he got franchise tagged by them, so I don't think they're going to be able to do that. Yeah. It wouldn't hurt my feelings for them to try to bring in another well-known linebacker to help out in that department. It wouldn't hurt my feelings for them to go after another it would not shock me if Gruden tried to do something like bring Xavier Rhodes over from the Vikings. It just wouldn't shock me. It just wouldn't shock me at all. It wouldn't shock me if he went for him or Trey Waynes, it wouldn't shock me. But they need help with that defensive back area. They really need help with that linebacker area. Like I said, our defensive line is really, really young. With Cleveland Farrell on one side and Max Crosby on the other side. We'll have Arden Key, who's gonna be a lot healthier. He'll be a part of that 3-man rotation. Maybe if we can find a big defensive tackle that, we really need, then we can do that. But, I'm looking at the Raiders' offense this year. We're going to have a good line. We're going to have Darren Waller. We're going to have Hunter Renfrow in the slot. And, depending on what they do with Tyrell Williams, he could be wide receiver number 1, 2, depending on what the draft is or what goes on in free agency. But part of me was kind of being if we had AJ Green and then also drafted a CeeDee Lamb, and then you have Tyrell Williams and Hunter Renfrow and Darren Waller, you got a fun offense. And then because you got to beat the Chiefs and you're gonna have to outscore the Chiefs. I just don't know if there's any defense in the NFL that can consistently stop the Chiefs from putting up 28 plus every game.
Yeah.
They're going to be a nightmare to deal with for the next decade for me.
Yeah, I know. It all stems from Patrick Mahomes again, who I think is the best quarterback in the NFL. The running back situation, because you kind of saw that. Andy Reid was way more willing to run the football in the Super Bowl. Williams sealed the game for him when they needed it the most. That 30-yard touchdown run or whatever it was. So it's going to be scary to see a Chiefs teams that can run and throw the football. So especially with a guy like Patrick Mahomes.
Do you think Damian Williams got snubbed of Super Bowl MVP? Do you think they should have? Do you think? I think they gave it to Patrick Mahomes because he's more of an NFL figure, and not because he deserved it. Because I believe Damian, and this isn't me being an Oklahoma fan, but Damian Williams deserved that over Patrick Mahomes. And I'll die on that hill.
Okay. I'll say this. Damian Williams balled when the Chiefs needed him to. Like, what do you have? A couple touchdowns, over 100 rushing yards. The man balled for the Chiefs when they needed him the most. But Patrick Mahomes came back when he was down, what was that, 1 or 2 scores or whatever. They needed to play from him. He hit Tyreek Hill on a 60-yard bomb. Now, could have let him a little bit more, maybe scored on it. Maybe. But give the guy a break. A 3rd and 15 or whatever it was, you have to make a play, and the guy goes out and makes it. He hucks that thing, and Tyreek Hill is fast enough to go out and there and get it. Damian Williams, again, couple of touchdowns, couple hundred rushing yards, sealed the Super Bowl for him. Amazing. Guy played his ball. Just played, lights out. Just played his balls off. I'll give him that. But Patrick Mahomes.
2 interceptions.
Yeah, but what did he do after that? What did he do after to lead the team to get him a lead? And I mean, just in my opinion, I think that if you put the ball in the hands of Damian Williams throughout the rest of the game, and you don't have a guy like Patrick Mahomes, no offense to Damian Williams, who again balled out. I don't think Damian Williams carries that team to the Super Bowl. I think it's because of the fact that Patrick Mahomes is so dominant that Damian Williams was able to spring that 30-yard touchdown run and be able to really seal the game because Andy Reid was able to run the football. He wanted to impose his will a little bit. Now again, I'll say this for a 3rd and final time. Damian Williams balled, okay? And I don't think there's any way that you can really look at it and argue with that because, again, a couple of touchdowns needed him the most, made the play. But Patty Mahomes put him in the position. He went out and he won the football game. And at the end of the day, the Chiefs, I was happy to see the Chiefs win. Like, I predicted it. Everybody thought I was crazy. But I don't think he got snubbed, no, because of the fact of how Patty Mahomes came back. Like, I would bet you 9 out of 10 quarterbacks, throwing 2 picks, going into the 4th quarter down, 10 points or whatever it was, and then having to come back. 9 out of 10 NFL quarterbacks wouldn't have done that. Not Kirk Cousins. I don't know about Drew Brees. I don't know about Aaron Rodgers, especially with how the Packers were this year. And I don't know about any other quarterback. Big Ben, no. But Patty Mahomes came back when they needed him the most, and he made the plays to bring home in the game, as well as Williams did. I'm not taking anything from Mr. Williams. He absolutely crushed it too. But it's because of how Patty Mahomes regrouped and came back and won the Super Bowl for the Chiefs. I believe they got it right. Now, I could be on the minor majority on that, and that's okay. I don't mind standing on this hill. I'll be on this hill. But when it came down to it, he balled. That's all you need to do, and when it counted most. Okay, I'll give you a second here to make your case for Mr. Williams. Please go ahead, by all means.
I would say that the most important play in that entire game was that 3rd and 15, 3rd and 18. I don't know what it was. But
just the mile.
When he hit that, I don't know. I just thought to the 49ers, like, how can you allow that to happen? I just couldn't believe it. And after he hit that, I think every single person that watched that game knew Kansas City was going to win.
Yeah.
Like, you just have that aura. You have that feeling. You're just like, crap, the Chiefs are going to win. And I'm a Raiders fan. And it's funny because, I follow a bunch of Raiders media, and I follow a bunch of their beat writers and all that. And the whole tough thing for Raider fans were, do you cheer for another team from California or do you cheer for the Chiefs? And me from South Dakota, that was an easy decision. I don't like the Chiefs. I wanted the 49ers to win that game. But I don't know. Patrick Mahomes played his worst football for 50 minutes and then played great for the last 10. And, did he make some good throws? Yeah. But Tyreek Hill deserves just as much credit for me making that catch and the run after and doing all that.
The brother was wide open. The brother was wide open.
That because Tyreek Hill made a great route run. Okay. You got to give the man his credit. Everybody's deserved credit. Patrick Mahomes put a good ball on it, but like you said, he might have put it a little bit better.
Could have scored.
Could have scored. Patrick Mahomes tried to – it was incredible watching Patrick Mahomes try to lose that game for 50 minutes. I could not believe how poorly Patrick Mahomes played. And personally, I loved it because I just am not a Patrick Mahomes fan. So it was also easy for me to choose Bill Belichick over Patrick Mahomes. I don't know why. It's like I said, he played for Texas Tech. I like Oklahoma. He plays for the Chiefs. I'm a Raiders fan. He's a heck of an athlete. I hate that I have to go against him for the rest of my life, probably. But and Damian Williams is an Oklahoma boy. It's like I said, I'm a little biased. Damian Williams was consistent that whole game. He made no errors whatsoever. And I think Damian Williams actually kept the Chiefs in the game offensively. And then, like you said, he had the ceiling touchdown to actually win the game, even though it wasn't really needed. But it was like, dagger. It's over. It's over. Yeah. And I was looking on. I was like, I think Damian Williams just won MVP. I went and looked at the stats again. I'm like, okay, Patrick Mahomes does have a passing touchdown and he does have a rushing touchdown, but he has 2 interceptions and he played poorly for all but 10 minutes of this game. Did he have some of the clutchest moments of the game? Yes, but Damian Williams consistently did a good job and didn't do anything wrong. And he had his 2 touchdowns as well, or maybe he had 1 touchdown. I don't know. He deserved it over him. I'll die on that hill.
Mm-hmm. I'll say this, and we'll leave it on to finally go and talk about Jameis Winston. If you give a screen pass to Damian Williams on 3rd and 15, 3rd and 18, whatever it was, does he make that play? I don't think he gets that first down.
He gets a touchdown. You're right.
No, he gets maybe. I will give him some credit. He maybe gets close. I'll give him anywhere from 8 to 12 yards, but the brother does not get a first down because of the great play that you brought up by Tyreek Hill and because of the good throw. Not great. Great throw would have been for a touchdown by Patty Mahomes. I think it's because of those things that Patrick Mahomes, when his team needed him the most, he made that play. As a franchise quarterback, when we talk about a franchise quarterback, a guy that goes out and wins Super Bowls, leads your team to Super Bowls, and makes those plays when you need them. And Patty Mahomes did that. Yes, I will give you that. 2 interceptions. Ugh. Even I was, wow, this is the worst I've ever seen Patty Mahomes play. Go ahead.
I want to ask you one more question.
Okay, go ahead.
If Damian Williams' name was Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, or a top known named running back, does Patrick Mahomes still win it?
I go back to yes, and it's not because.
Oh, get out of here with that! No, Colton, no.
Okay, let me explain. Now, again, I believe this brother deserves a lot of credit, and in fact, I believe he deserves the most credit for them winning the game. But I don't think when it turns.
Isn't that what an MVP is?
Let me kind of rephrase that. I think he deserves a lot of credit, but he doesn't deserve the most. I apologize. I misspoke. I think he deserves a lot of credit. Dude scored what? Didn't he get a receiving touchdown as well? Receiving touchdown and rushing.
He balled out. Guy balled
out. But when it was on, the game was on the line. Who did the Chiefs go to? They went
Tyreek Hill.
They went to Patty Mahomes' arm, who threw it to Tyreek Hill, who made the play. Yes, we've covered this. He's made a great route. But how did the brother get there? Are you going to sit here and tell me that if you put David Carr in, or whoever it was their second-round quarterback was, do you think he makes that throw? I don't think so. I think he overshoots him, maybe goes undercut a little bit. Patrick Mahomes made a good, again, not great throw to be able to make them win that Super Bowl. But, okay, put them in a better position to. But then Damian Williams did his thing and balled out. Now, I want to say another thing about Damian Williams, and then we'll put a cap in this for now. I do think that Damian Williams deserves a little bit of a contract extension, or maybe deserves a little bit.
Yes, he does.
He does deserve that because not only because of the Super Bowl, but because of the AFC Championship game when Andy Reid wanted to run the football, the brother balled out when he got his chance. Mr. Williams, who again, like you said, might not be more of a more named running back. I believe that when it came down to it, he made the team, he made the plays that he needed for, and his team needed him to. He made those plays. He deserves a raise. Because he got Andy Reid his first Super Bowl, or helped anyways. But Patty Mahomes, when it came down to it, he was the guy that made that 40, 50-yard bomb, whatever it was. He was the guy that in crunch time made it happen. So I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel.
You're good. You're good. I just love it.
I know, and I think we gotta put a cap in this. But the last thing we got to talk about is Jameis Winston. There's a lot of things. I know you literally just poured on the guy for like a little bit, which is fine. I understand. Dude deserves, everybody's saying it, I'll say it too. Dude deserves the Defensive Player of the Year. 30 interceptions, 6 of which went for pick sixes. Absolutely deserves to be the Defensive Player of the Year. But and I'm not saying this LASIK thing has any validity or any really way of looking at it. I do think that looking at this, though, if we're going to be serious about Jameis Winston, we need to remember the guy that won a national title at Florida State, my dude. Like, the dude came out involved. And I think that he was in a little bit of a rough situation. Like, they passed the ball a lot more. Their defense was a little suspect. And if you try to put that pressure on a guy like Jameis Winston, I don't think I just don't think he's there yet in terms of having to answer. So the question is if Jameis Winston went to the Patriots, would he be able to make the Patriots effective? What's your take on that?
I don't think so. I mean, if you go and look at the Buccaneers wide receiving core, they have like one of the best wide receiving core. Mm-hmm. And the Patriots offense with Bill Belichick, it's like do your 10-yard slant, do your 5-yard out. It's not that big explosive play type offense that the Buccaneers have. Mm-hmm. And I just don't see Jameis Winston being that type of quarterback there. Granted, could be completely wrong about this. Yep. And like I said, I have no idea how much. I know it's talked about, like, how much does this LASIK eye surgery have? How much is it actually going to affect him? Is he going to have like 4 more touchdowns and 3 less picks? I don't know. Is it going to be 10 less interceptions? I don't know. I would love to know what the Vegas odds are on Jameis Winston interceptions this upcoming year. I truly want to know. I'm interested. I'm not going to bet on it or anything like that, but it's something that I'm going to watch. I really want to know. It's incredible. 30 interceptions. 30. Yeah. I throw the ball a lot. Dude, some of his interceptions are just laughable bad. It is not an NFL Sunday until Jameis Winston throws an interception.
Okay, I have to agree with that. I'm looking at this. I do that. Listen, the guy absolutely didn't take care of what he needed to. Like, he didn't. Guy threw a lot of interceptions, too many. Like,
they're bad. They're so bad.
And I think the guy deserves a little bit of credit here, because it's okay. If he didn't throw 33 touchdown passes to those 30 interceptions, I would say no. If he threw 20, I would say, okay, yeah, the Bucs need to find themselves another quarterback. But because of the way he kind of buried it, like, he's a 1-for-1 quarterback. Now, he threw a lot of picks. Like, that's easy to see. 30 interceptions, that's the last.
Dude, it's so bad. When you get done with this episode, go watch like a highlight of all 30 interceptions. It is on most of them. It's like, this could have been easily avoided, Jameis. Why?
I know, but here's why. I'm gonna say this, and I want this to be kind of heard. Whether it's on the Buccaneers or on the Patriots, Jameis Winston's gonna ball next year. Now, when I say ball, I don't mean he goes to win a playoff game necessarily. I don't mean he necessarily goes to win the Super Bowl. I'm saying Jameis Winston goes out not because of the LASIK surgery, but because of all the flack this guy's getting for what happened. Now, much deserved flack. Much deserved. You threw 30 picks, you're going to get flack. That's how it goes. But this brother's going to go out next year. He's going to make plays. He's going to throw dimes all year long. I'm predicting he throws at least 35 touchdowns and under 20 picks. That's my prediction. Because of the things that, if he stays with the Buccaneers, and Bruce Arians, the head coach of the Buccaneers, he kind of came out and said he just needs to make better decisions. I think Bruce Arians is that guy that's going to come and make Jameis Winston take that next step and make the Buccaneers think, okay, yeah, this is the guy. The Buccaneers need to give him a better defense so that they don't have to throw the football, a lot in order to win those games. The defense needs to improve a little bit, but mark it down on your calendars right now, Mr. Gronlund. Jameis Winston is going to throw for 35 touchdowns and under 20 picks next year. I'm calling it right now. I'm saying over 4,500 yards. And I believe the Bucs find a way to sneak into the playoffs just because of how well he plays next year. He resurges his career a little bit, puts all the doubters to shame, because we got to remember what this brother did. He's a winner. I truly believe that Jameis Winston is a winner. Now, if he went to the Patriots, I do believe he could win a Super Bowl or two with Bill Belichick, and here is why. You get a guy that comes in. I think he's a little bit more athletically gifted than Tom Brady. I think he's faster. I think he's got a better arm. Tom Brady's just one of the smartest football players, I think, in my opinion, to live. Like, I don't think anybody can debate that. But if you give Jameis some wide receivers, you give him some help, I think Jameis could win a Super Bowl with Bill Belichick because of how good that Belichick defense is. Because for a while there, that defense was like one of the best in the NFL. And if you get Jameis Winston in there, I think that if anybody's going to really, honestly, if it's not Bruce Arians, if anybody is going to take care of the Jameis Winston interception problem, it's going to be Bill Belichick, because he's a guy that, no-nonsense guy that tells you how it is. I think if anybody's going to do it, it is Bill Belichick. And now I'm not saying, again, I don't think that with the 49ers the way they are, I think they take a step forward and maybe make the playoffs. But I do think it comes down to them getting a little bit more of a run game, getting their defense a little bit kind of better up, because a lot of those passing yards and a lot of how those went, I believe Jameis Winston threw 5 picks in one game. That's a tough day for a quarterback. I think it was a lot of in garbage time, though. Like, he had to come out and try to make a play. So take my words, Jameis Winston will come out and throw 35 teddies next year.
Does that change if he's on a different team? Does that number change if he's on a different team?
Yes, because I'm predicting. Okay, here's why, though. I'm predicting it's because he's on the Buccaneers. If he goes to the Patriots and Tom Brady leaves, I say that he throws. I'll say he throws 25 teddies, and I still think he throws. I'd say he throws almost under 10 interceptions. I know.
Do the Patriots win the AFC East over the Bills? Over the Bills with Jameis Winston if the New England Patriots have Jameis. I know there's a lot of things that can happen in free agency and with the draft, but I firmly believe the Bills are set to finally dethrone the Patriots.
Yes. Here's why. Let me just say this. It's not because of Jameis Winston. It's not because of the I need to kind of rewind here. The Patriots need to do a lot. Like Tom Brady was struggling last year, and he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, 6 Super Bowl rings. If you are going to give yourself a shot, if you're the Patriots, you need to bring in better wide receivers. Your defense is pretty good, but you need to bring in some weapons. I mean, you need to bring in some guys that can run, that can catch, that can do their things. You need to bring in a better tight end. After Gronk left, I don't even know who the starting tight end is for the Patriots. Okay. I think that if you bring in a better tight end, if you bring in a better couple of wide receivers, I think if it's Tom Brady or Jameis Winston, I do think that the Patriots are still a little bit better, especially because of Bill Belichick now. Because the Bills, don't get me wrong, I have loved Josh Allen. I have raved about this guy. I truly believe, and they've got a good defense too. Solid defense, good solid defense. And Josh Allen, who I think is going to also take a step forward this year. I think he's tired of dealing with these Patriots, but I don't think it's quite enough this year, because I think Bill Belichick, he's just the GOAT. Until further notice, when the man has a losing season, I think it's been, forever since the guy's had a losing season? Like, seriously. Like, he's just the GOATest coach of all time. He's just the greatest coach of all time.
That's why I'm starting my franchise with him.
Yeah, exactly. But at the end of the day, I do think a lot. You're right, though. Like, a lot could happen in free agency. There's going to be a lot that happens, but we're going to kind of put a wrap on this, man. I got to say thank you, man. It was absolutely fun, even though the Damian Williams debate, we got heated a little bit.
Awesome. I love it.
I do too. I really appreciate you coming on. Make sure you give Mr. Gronlund a follow on Twitter. Also, make sure you guys follow D1 Des Moines for Mr. Karter Schult. Give him a follow too on all social media platforms. The guy's coming out of the NFL, doing a lot of great things. He's training people, doing what he loves. So, got to give you a shout out to him. And just make sure you guys give everybody the Sports Brief Podcast a follow, as well as check out the website at www.sportsbriefpodcast.com. And as always, just have a great night, and make sure you guys take it easy.